Gary! I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
Hello everybody, hope you're happy and healthy. Welcome to episode number 1 of Home of the Braves, the first series that I'm doing on Out of the Park Baseball 21. And just before we jump into everything, I'm going to just quickly show you the options that I'm playing with so that you have an idea of what this save game will look like. If we look in our management options, as you can see, for the most part, the lineups and depth charts will be run by my manager, Snicker, but everything else will be run by me apart from minor league promotions and demotions. And the reason being is because if you've seen my tutorial video, then you understand that I like to set up my minor league team with high level or high potential prospects in order to ensure that I have a good pipeline of prospects coming up to potentially challenge for a spot on my major league roster. As we can also see through our game settings, I also have my legacy mode turned on, and that's just because in the event that I need to change the settings of my lineup or my pitching staff because the manager isn't playing players in the position that I want them to be played in, I still have the ability to jump in and edit that. For the most part, I'll leave that to the manager, but just in case I need to, I'm leaving that as sort of a stopgap. If we just want to quickly jump into the Atlanta Braves front office, as you can see right now, the reason I'm playing the Braves is because of the fact that they have so many top-level prospects coming up through the ranks. I have played the Braves in a number of other out-of-the-park baseballs, ranging from about OOTP 17 all the way up to, well, I guess now in OOTP 21. And the reason for that is because of the prospects, primarily Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies. The reality is that these two players now have long-term contracts with the club. Ozzie Albies, I think, potentially a steal for how cheap he is.
Yeah, boy.
And Ronald Acuna Jr. also having, I think, a 7-year contract with the team. He's a little more expensive, but probably where he would be at arbitration anyways, so not too out of the question. So that does sort of take some of the power out of my hands as far as managing them, but I still want to see what they can do along with several of the top pitching prospects, Mike Soroka being one of them, Max Fried, Bryce Wilson, who looks like he has decreased in potential since OOTP 20 and 19. Kyle Wright, the same can be said about him. There are still a number of good prospects down the pipeline, which we'll get to later on in the video. And that's primarily why I want to pick the Braves. Right now, they have a mid-tier budget, a mid-tier player payroll, as well as plenty of money for extensions, free agents, etc. With all that in mind, they still have a great chance to make the playoffs in this postseason. Obviously, they made it last season. And within 2 or 3 seasons, I'd like to try to push for a World Series title. So that's what I'm going to try to aim to do in this series, is get 4 or 5 seasons completed and win a World Series in that time. That's kind of my window, I think, is maybe at most 5 seasons. The Braves are set up beautifully to have a awesome dynasty created just naturally without too much tweaking, but I will of course be making some changes depending on what players are performing and what prospects are looking the best. But up until that point, we'll just run with the roster that is being set up with the real life Braves in 2020. As you can see, I've just changed a few of the things here in the player options as well, and that is primarily how the rating scales are set up. So I've got them set up 1 to 100. You can do 20 to 80, but I'm going to do 1 to 100 for the actual attributes, and then the overall rating and potential rating is 20 to 80. I've also changed a few of the league settings and rules, but I have kept draft pick trading off. So I normally do allow draft pick trading, but I didn't want to do it in this series, and the reason being it's just a little more of a challenge, and I thought that majority of the players that are playing OOTP aren't playing with draft pick trading. I'm one of the only people, I'm assuming, that does that, and it does sort of create a unfair advantage for me over the AI. So we'll see how I make out without draft pick trading. I haven't done it in OOTP 21. I actually haven't played too much of the game so far. So as this playthrough goes along, it will be a lot of learning and group learning, as I'm sure some of you will tell me in the comments what I'm doing wrong or what I could be doing more effectively, and I'm more than happy to try out those ideas. So if you see anything that I'm doing that is a little bit off or a little bit wonky, please let me know how I could fix that. We go into the front office here. Like we said, I'm not going to change the scouting budget or development budget at this point. The ticket price I'm going to leave as is. As we can see through our personnel, I'm going to give Alex Anthropoulos a chance as my assistant GM. And the reason being is because I like the work that he did in Toronto to set up the Blue Jays for a successful run at a World Series a number of years ago, as well as keeping the prospect pool quite deep if you look at the roster that they've got right now. I'm also going to leave Brian Snedeker as the manager, and not going to change too much else with the pitching and hitting coach, although I'm sure there could be better options out there. I'm going to leave it for the first couple of weeks, at least until the first year player draft, and then potentially change it over if need be. The owner is John Malone, and he is an economizer. He's got a demanding personality or patience level, and I do think that his goals will be achievable this season. If I can't build a championship team around this current base, then I'll be quite upset, to be honest. The other thing that we want to look at is upcoming free agents. So if we just look in this, we see that there are quite a few players that are going to be upcoming free agents, so I'm a little bit worried about that. Obviously, we have some decent players that are going to be potentially tough to re-sign. Marcelo Ozuna, do we re-sign a 29-year-old? Tyler Flowers, 87 defense is very, very tough to replace. But 34 years old, he's probably going to want a number of years on the extension. I'm not sure if I'm willing to do that. Tuki Toussaint, this guy, AAA player right now, he's going to need a re-sign as well. And then you can just look down the lineup and see there are a number of major league eligible players. Shane Green, Nick Markakis is another one, and then Solarte, who is playing AAA but has a pedigree of playing in the majors for the last couple of seasons. So there are a few position players that I'm going to have to replace, as well as pitchers who I'm either going to have to replace or re-sign. I'll make that decision later on in the save, depending on how they perform in the first couple of games throughout the season. As you can see in the salary page, this is one of my favorite pages to look at, and it's a very well laid out view of where your money is going. So as you can see here, 3 of my top 5 players as far as player payroll are on expiring deals, and there is a good chance that I don't re-sign any of these guys, so that opens up quite a lot of money for free agents if I want to. And then if we can see, there's another 3 within the top 10, so Shane Green, Tyler Flowers, Nick Markakis, none of them on team-friendly deals, I would say. Maybe you could argue Flowers, but his contact is just basically useless for the majors, so Nick Markakis is the only one that I'm looking at bringing back for maybe a year or two, I think, of this entire group. Maybe Shane Green. I mean, he's got a really good ERA. He's performed quite well in real life over the past few seasons, but 6.3 mil is a lot of money for a relief pitcher, in my opinion. You normally have prospects coming down the pipeline that you can play for league minimum, and they end up essentially doing the job for you. Okay, so I'm going to try to make 1 or 2 trades before we get started in the season. So if we shop Adini Hechavarria, we can see here that we have some decent relief pitching prospects. Zach Short, who's a second base prospect. Nick Castellanos, who's a right fielder, a decent right fielder, but on a fairly big contract. Roberto Osuna, who's a closer, but very injury prone and cancerous in the dressing room. A couple more relief pitchers. And then we get Clint Frazier, who's a bit of an interesting option in left field. He still has an option year remaining on his contract, so that's an option. Obviously, we have a couple of left fielders already, so maybe not perfect fit, but at least a decent option for us to play with. There's also Chris Archer, and that's more of a win now kind of pick because he's got 2 years left on a fairly small contract, and one of those is a team option year, so there's an option right there. Cole Tucker, who is a good shortstop prospect, so kind of shortstop for shortstop, one who is MLB ready in Hechavarria, and one who is more of a prospect in Cole Tucker. And then obviously some more options here. We have Frankie Cordero, who's a right fielder, and another decent starting pitcher prospect. Well, two of them really, Zach Davies and Cal Quantrill from San Diego. So there are options, and I just wanted to take a look here and see what a return could possibly look like. The reason for that is when you're building up the team, looking at the lineup, you want to see obviously who's an upcoming FA and if you can get anything in return for those guys instead of just letting them walk for free. So for instance, Marcell Ozuna, he's somebody that I can maybe offer a 1-year qualifying offer, a QO to, and hopefully he wouldn't sign that. He'd see, okay, well, I can get 6 years at a similar number from another team, but by submitting that QO, I then get a draft pick in a supplemental draft round for Marcell Ozuna. So that's an option. I might not trade him, but I will look at getting a draft pick for him through the free agency rules that the MLB has. And as a result, I'll take a look at what I can get for him by shopping him, but I'm not going to be that interested unless it's a great offer. I can also look at, okay, what can I get back for Tyler Flowers, etc., etc. And in doing so, just get an idea, okay, if I dish this player, can I fill it with a return on a trade from another team for a different player that I have on my team, right? So, okay, Zach Short, I can get him as an offer for a couple of different players that I'm selling. Again, Osuna, you see a lot of the same names because this is the players that the teams are looking to basically get rid of. So, okay, I can get Fraser for Flowers, therefore I don't need to trade off Hechavarria in order to get him. Or the same can be said for potentially Cole Tucker, right? Okay, so I can trade my aging catcher, good defensive player, but not somebody that I'm looking to re-sign, and get a shortstop prospect, and then trade the shortstop prospect and maybe a relief pitcher or a pitching prospect or something to that effect in order to get a bigger return. So that's how I kind of set up my team in the first few days of the season. I also want to look at my AAA, AA, single A rosters and say, okay, where does my team have strength in terms of potential and in prospects? And if they have, okay, let's say someone here like Christian Patch. This is someone who is a terrific center fielder. Look at these stats, 100 as far as position rating. His range is incredible arm, and decent power stats as well as contact. The eye looks to have decent potential. Okay, this is someone that I'll want on the team fairly soon. I don't need to look at a center fielder in return for a trade. So that's something that I would keep in mind when I'm making the trade. The same thing, okay, I have so many starting pitching prospects, therefore maybe someone like Bryce Wilson, who's currently in my rotation, is expendable, and I can get a huge return for a starting pitcher in my major league roster. That's sort of the way I'm going to approach this team in the first few days before the season starts. As you can see here, we have a decent right field prospect, lots of power there. Not MLB ready anytime soon, but just something that I can keep in mind when making these deals and looking up and down the trade offers that teams are trying to make in order to get some of the players that I'm looking to offload. Okay, the final thing that I'm going to do today before this video ends is just take a look at the goals that I have from my owner, John Malone, which are to reach the playoffs this season, sign Freddie Freeman to an extension, and build a team that can bring a championship home in the next 4 seasons. So none of those are out of the question. I also want to just take a look at the free agents that are available to see if there's anything worth signing, which I doubt there would be. I mean, Danny Salazar is not a bad option as a starting pitcher, especially if it's just a 1 or 2 year deal. That's an interesting proposition right there. The other thing I'm going to do is just fill out my minor league squad with some decent depth that you can pick up for very cheap. So for instance, if you see here Danny Salazar, who I'm going to look at potentially signing as a free agent if I can get him on a 1 or 2 year deal, you can see here demand is 1.5 mil, so very low risk. But if you're looking to build out your minor league squad, as you can see here, there's nothing on demand for someone like Mark Montgomery. So I'm just going to tick him, and I'm going to go down the list, and I'll tick the rest of the players as well, just like so. And all I'll do once I get down to potential, maybe, I don't know, 40, potentially 35, something like that, is I'm just going to, as an example here, right click on the names and then offer minor league contracts, just like that. And once I do that, it will send me an email letting me know I've either signed them and they've been placed in my minor league system, or that they refuse the offer and went somewhere else. And that's okay if they do that. It's no sweat off your back if you don't manage to get these guys. They're just free agents that can help build out your squad a little bit in the minor leagues, help your minor league teams win, therefore improve the personnel that you've got on your management teams of the minor league squads you have. So that can help with bringing in cheap, highly rated, with high reputation staff members in the future, in the long-term seasons that you're going to be playing. But it also helps with showing your prospects down in the minor league squads what it feels like to win championships at the lower level, AAA ball, AA, etc., etc. So that's something that I do, and throughout the season you'll notice a couple of emails coming in just saying, oh, we've signed this player and we've assigned them to the minor league system, and all that is me checking the free agency or the waiver wire and seeing what players I could potentially add for nothing to my minor league team in order to make them a little stronger. So as we continue here, guys, I just want to say thanks very much for watching this video today. I hope that you've enjoyed it, and if you want to keep seeing this series as we go, feel free to hit that subscribe button as well as like the video for more Out of the Park Baseball 21 content. Thanks, guys, and take care.